you lot, so for today's second instalment in the travel journaling series, I'll be continuing to work on a spread from my recent New York trip, covering a topic that was suggested in the comments of my last video, which is urban sketching, which I do think is one of the main skills to be able to incorporate into a travel journal, with the added help of some lessons learned on Skillshare, who were kind enough to sponsor this video. So urban sketching for me is the practice of quickly capturing the scene in front of you, often in ink and or watercolour, and it's generally practiced on location or in plein air, but the same effect can be achieved from photos if needs be. Urban sketching is such an invaluable skill to have for a travel journal because it allows you to sketch on location and capture the moment, render buildings and landscapes and snapshots of your trip from your own unique perspective. It's something that I've really had to work on. I generally have quite a careful and detailed approach to drawing buildings and landscapes and anything really, so in order to nail down the main concepts that produce a successful urban sketch, so things like drawing what you see, drawing quickly without letting your brain take over, and just general ink and watercolour sketching techniques, I ended up having a look through Skillshare, who, as you know, have been a huge help for me in the past in gaining skills and a more confident and informed approach to my work. Since I signed up to the site at the beginning of this year, I've taken classes on lettering, comics and visual storytelling, and even creative writing. If you don't already know, they're an online learning community with classes on all sorts of things: art, design, lifestyle. I'm planning on looking into some of their photography and videography classes. Anyone can sign up from anywhere. They even have an app where you can access your classes offline, which I think is an extra relevant feature for this video as travelling artists. Once you're signed up to their $10 a month premium membership, you have unlimited access to all the classes. There are something like 15,000 on there now, with more being added all the time, and you can actually get 2 months of premium access completely free with the code MINI2. I will have that link below. You can't tell me it isn't worth checking out. It's really become my go-to resource for learning and developing new skills. And this case was no different, so on top of taking classes on fast inking, combating mental blocks, and expressive watercolour techniques, all of which I will have linked below for you, I found this incredibly in-depth course taught by Peggy Dean, who you might actually already know from her website, The Pigeon Letters. She's someone I consider to be a pretty big name in illustration and lettering, someone whose work I admire, and someone with an invaluable wealth of knowledge. And among a few other classes on Skillshare, she actually has one on urban sketching. And she spends a good 2 hours talking through techniques and demonstrating in real time, with a lovely thorough commentary on everything she does in terms of choices she makes and even making the odd mistake and showing how she deals with that. So today I'm going to be using what I've learned to create a quick sketch to be part of my New York travel journal, and I will talk you through what I'm doing and why. Now obviously, since I'm no longer in New York, I'm going to be drawing from a photo, which isn't ideal but also isn't uncommon for an urban sketch. I will try to make a video later on in this series specifically about sketching on location. This is just a picture I took while I was on the bus. I like the framing of it, and I always love the look of telephone wires breaking up a scene. In terms of tools, I'm keeping it simple and realistic to what I would typically use, just my fine liner and portable painter palette. You can check out my last travel journal video for all the info on tools I take with me on a trip, but these are the two things that I used while drawing the Washington Monument on location. And before I jump right in, I have spent a little bit of time prior to this practicing a few of the typical things that pop up in these sketches. In her class, Peggy actually demonstrates a few different ways to simplify and draw things like people, windows, trees, and once you have that in your repertoire, it makes it so much easier to get them down quickly, almost from muscle memory. So try to spend a bit of time before diving right into an urban sketch, just practicing some of the smaller elements that come up a lot. Another thing to think about before you get started is how you're going to frame your picture. Think about the space that is going to take up on the page. Think about what parts you would want to include, whether you want a panoramic type of view, so going along the page, long and slim. Maybe you want to highlight the height of a building by making your drawing tall and narrow and not including all the stuff on the side. And the final thing to think about, even before beginning your drawing, is what the focus point of your drawing will be. You can't give everything detail and attention in this kind of situation, and you don't really want to anyway. That would overwhelm the piece. Whether it's a photo or you're there in person, look at which areas draw your attention and put the most detail into those while you're drawing. Everything else can stay relatively simple. In a fast drawing setting where you might have a lot of people walking by, or you have to deal with the changing light of day, something where you don't want to spend a lot of time in one spot with your head down and pen on the paper, the best thing you can do for yourself is spend a little bit of extra time thinking and planning your approach so you can spend less time actually executing it. And now you're thinking, just get on with it. I know someone in the comments is going to be like, oh, the drawing starts at 5 minutes, 15 seconds, but I wouldn't say these things if they weren't important. So moving on to actually putting it together, one of the most important things that I learned was to start at eye level. So I'm actually going to start with this quite obvious feature over here. Now you can start wherever you want in your drawing, but with your starting point at eye level, it makes it a lot easier to work out your perspective and angle lines coming away from that point. Another great place to start would be a scene's vanishing point, but this particular picture didn't have a clear one. But both of those things are covered more thoroughly in Peggy's class. Another great tip to do with eye level, something that I had no idea about before, is that regardless of how close or how far someone is, if their average height, their head or eyes will generally fall on the same line. It's a great way to show perspective. So for example, even though there's only one person in this picture, I can add, say, one back here. A little bit further back. And you see his head is on the same level as this guy, but his body is obviously smaller because he's further away. It really helps to give depth to your drawings and is an easy way to make things make a bit more sense. You can also see that I'm omitting a lot of the little details that are over here, all these cars and windows and things. I might add a few bits in a bit later, but at the moment I'm just kind of picking and choosing which bits I include and which bits I don't. And that's the best part about urban sketching. You can make your drawing whatever you want it to be, add things, take them away, move things around. As long as you're not drawing a famous landmark like the Statue of Liberty, you can really just have free rein to alter buildings and things to work with you and your perspective. And once you've got a few elements in here, you can start looking at things based on their scale and their location. An easy cheat for urban sketching is to use different parts of your drawing as measuring tools for the rest. So for example, this building in the background here is about 2/3 bigger than this one in the foreground. And now you can see I'm just using that measuring method to block in shapes. Learn to see landscapes as a collection of geometric flat shapes and just pay attention to how each shape relates to the next in terms of size and angles. It's all about how this line leads to this line at this angle for this long. Not so much this building is this tall and it has this many windows. Train yourself to see shapes and lines, not things. Now when it comes to colouring your piece, it's really up to you how you approach things. Peggy gives some great watercolouring tips. For me, I quite like a bit of white space in my urban sketches, and I think that lends itself well to a limited palette and a limited amount of time. So I tend to focus on shaded areas, and in my personal preference, I don't try to be too close to the actual colours of the photo or the scene. I mainly just focus on tone. So all in all, this sketch took about 30 to 45 minutes and would probably have been quicker if I wasn't talking and sketching at the same time. I'm confident that I could work just as fast in a plein air setting, and as I said, we'll talk about that more in future videos in this series, as well as choosing what to record in your journal and some ideas for page layouts and drawings. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you do check out Skillshare, and I will have their website and info on the free trial linked below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.